Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the MSR Workshop. In today's video we're going to do a fun video and we are going to be building a bandsaw box. Now we're not just going to be building any old bandsaw box, we're going to be stepping it up a notch and we are going to be doing one with a fairly intricate pattern. Now the concept is going to be the same, but there's a lot more parts to this one, so stick around and I'll show you what we're going to do. So the pattern that we're going to be using today kind of looks like this. It's going to be more of a kind of a tree, and each one of these little areas right here is going to be a drawer. So it's going to have a number of drawers. Now I went ahead and prepared my blank already. Now you can do this out of any kind of wood. You can even do it out of a solid piece of wood. I've chosen to use some laminated up pieces of plywood, and then top and bottom is going to be walnut. So I think it'll be a pretty neat looking bandsaw when we get done. So obviously you want to prepare your blank first. We're going to take this and we are going to glue this onto the surface. And I'm going to use a spray adhesive glue, and you can pick this up at your local hardware store, I believe. And I know for sure Woodcraft carries it because that's where I got mine. So the adhesive I'm going to use is this brand called Weldwood, and it's just a multi-purpose spray adhesive, and you don't want to glue this so down that you can't get it off. So the pattern will still peel off, and this is just to give us our rough outline. So the next step in our bandsaw box is we got the pattern glued on, so now we are going to cut out, we're just doing the outline. So cutting out the outline, getting rid of all this waste out here. And then once that's done, then we're going to take some time just to actually sand the outside before we start working on the inside. On my bandsaw here, to make this cut more efficient and a little bit easier to do, I'm using one of the Carter stabilizers for the rear of the blade. I don't have any side guides, but it's the one right behind the blade. This makes it so this blade can turn a little bit and make corners a lot tighter, but it also puts tension on the blade so I can, do a lot more of those curved cuts. Now, the blade that I recommend is 3/16 by 4 tooth per inch. That's going to give you your fastest cutting, but also be able to turn the tightest circles. The next step, and this is a very important step, is you want to cut your back off before you do any cutting of the inside or on these lines. So we're going to go over to the bigger bandsaw here because it's set up with a bigger blade. That's the nice thing about having two saws, is you can have a big blade set up on one and a small blade set up on the other. So we're going to head over to this big bandsaw and we're going to cut the back off. Now you can cut as much or as little as you want. Of course, the more that you cut off, the less deep your drawers are going to be when you pull them out. So we'll probably go around 1/4 of an inch. So we've got the back cut off. So next, go ahead and mark your inside and your outside so you know which direction to glue this back on. And I don't want to do really any sanding because it should, once I glue this here, it should mate up really good and I probably won't be able to see my glue line. The next is going to be the fun part, and that's where we're going to start tracing out our line on our pattern. So the thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a good entry spot on your pattern. And what do I mean by good entry spot? Well, you want to come in so you don't have to do any hard turns, but you also want to come in where your grain is running, because when you close this little seam up, you don't want to be able to see it. If I come up right here and I try to glue this back together, I'm going to be able to see this little seam here. So that's one key thing to kind of hide your glue line. All right, so that was a lot of fun. So you saw how I went around in certain circles. If I couldn't make the super sharp turns, I'd either back it out or turn the saw off and just wait till it comes to a stop before feeding my blade back out, taking the piece out. Now right here is my seam. So I'm gonna take some Titebond 2 wood glue and we'll get that clamped up, and with a little sanding and some glue, hopefully we won't be able to really see our seam very much at all. So setting this aside, these are what our drawers are going to look like. So first thing, drawers are very simple. You're going to cut your front off, cut your back off, and then we're going to make a little half moon kind of circle shape on the saw, and that's going to be the inside of our drawer. Then the process would be to glue the front and back on again. Let's get this guy glued up, and then we can start cutting out the drawers. Now there's... All right, so while we are waiting for that section to dry from the glue, we're going to go ahead and cut our tops and our bottoms out. Now, I've gone ahead and numbered the top and the bottom. So I've done a 1A and a 1B, 2A, 2B, so on and so forth. So you can keep these organized so you know which goes on the outside, which goes on the inside, and also which drawer they're going to go onto, because if you get them mixed up, it's going to take a while to get them back. So we're going to slice the tops and bottoms off, and we'll be right back. So the next part in our bandsaw box build is to cut the inside of the drawer out. And you're going to want to probably do these one at a time, where you can cut the inside out and then put the front and back on together, or at least rubber band it together, because you really don't want to get them out and messed, because there's going to be a lot of little pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and set the top, the bottom to the side. You kind of want to look at your box and see which is the up and which is the down, because you don't want to do your drawer upside down when you go to put it back together. Because when you glue the front and back on, it's really not going to matter too much if your one wall is, say, thicker than the other, because you really won't see it. All right, so let's review what we've done so far and what we need to do left. So starting off with, we prepared our blank. Next, we glued on our pattern. After that, we cut the back off of our box. We marked the front and back of that piece that we cut off. After we did that, we went in from the side here and cut out the inside of all of these, which were going to become our drawers. Then we set those aside. Next, and you can do this out of order, but we glued our seam back together. So we glued this guy back together, got that gluing. Then we came back to our drawers. And our drawers, we cut the front and back off of our drawers. After we did that, we marked those, set those aside so we know how to put it back together. Then we did the hollowing out of our drawers, where we scooped it out to make, room for whatever we want to put in it. After that, we need to do some gluing, and we haven't done that yet. And that means we need to glue our back onto our main box, and then we need to glue the fronts and backs onto all of our drawers. Now there's a lot to glue on, and I recommend once you get these clamped to wipe as much of the outside glue off, because that'll make it so you don't have to do as much sanding, and then you don't have to worry about as much dark little lines to get off. If you leave it on there, it's a little bit more work. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything glued up off camera, because I'm sure you don't want to watch that. Once it's all glued, then there is going to be a lot of sanding, which I'm not going to film as well, because I'm sure that will bore you all to death. So we're going to do gluing and sanding next. Now, a couple tips on sanding on your drawers. You don't want to do a lot of sanding on the outside of the drawers. You can get rid of a lot of the marks with some minimal sanding. But if you sand them too much, it makes your doors smaller, and then they're not going to fit as tightly. And then also the inside of the box. Now, the inside of the box, you'll have some saw marks as well. Don't hit that too hard, because you want your drawers to fit nice and tight. And lastly, don't worry at all about in here, because the final step, which will get filmed, is we're going to flock the inside of our drawers. So I'll be right back. So we finally got everything glued on and sanded. So one thing that I did not mention in my process that I'm going to making it, and this is not necessary, but if you'll notice on some of these drawers that fit in here, there's a little bit more gap than I would really like, and that's probably because I've sanded too much. And that's one thing I told you not to do, is sand too much. But one way to kind of hide that is to do a round over on all of this. And one thing that round over will do will kind of draw your eye away from the gap, hopefully, and make it look kind of, I think, a little bit cooler. And the fact that this kind of looks like a tree, and it'll give that more of a tree look. Now I'm going to do this with 2 router bits. And you could do it with 1, but I think 2 will be better, and I'll explain why. To do the inside, you're going to have to use a small router bit, and the round over that I'm going to use on all of this is an 1/8 inch. Now, I have gotten off of Amazon, this is a Whiteside 1980 round over bit, and that's the number, I believe it's called 1980, in case you need the part number, but I'll throw it in the description below. But what this is it's a bearingless round over. So it just has a pin on here. So it's very, very small up here, and what that does is it allows me to get in these really tight corners and past these little gaps here where a bearing would be too big and it would get stuck. So I'm going to do a round over on all of the inside, and I'm going to also do a round over on all of the drawers. Now the outsides of the drawers, the round I'm going to use over is on my router table, and I'm going to use a bearing for that one. And that'll just make it a little bit easier and a little bit safer. But on this one, this guy I will use in a palm router, and we'll just go around all these little things here. And so let's do that and see how it looks. So as we near the end of our video, we're left with 2 more steps. The step that we're going to talk about right now is putting a finish on our piece. And the last step would be putting the flocking in, and that's the fuzzy stuff on the inside of the drawers. Now, why would we put this on before the flocking? Well, the reason is because we don't want to get this stuff on top of the flocking in the drawers. And also, we need to seal the inside of the drawers. And the reason we do that is because the flocking adhesive is colored. And if we don't seal that, that adhesive can sometimes either leak through the drawers to the other side, or because it's porous on a piece of wood, it soaks in and then it doesn't allow enough material to sit on top of the wood for the flocking fibers to stick to, and so you have to reapply more coats. So you want to seal your wood first. So the 2 finishes that I have really found good luck with are a brand called Waterlocks, and they have it in a semi-gloss and a gloss. Now the finish that I'm going to use today is satin. Satin I've had really good luck with. It gives it a really nice natural looking finish. It's not too shiny, but if you like the shiny finish, this Gloss XL88 is fantastic. Both of these dry clear, so you don't have to worry about them being yellow. Clear, it just looks like glass. It's beautiful. You can apply a couple coats. Now, because you're using a polyurethane style finish, you're going to need to sand a little bit between coats. But it's very, very easy to apply. This stuff I've used on countertops and stuff. It's very durable. It's a beautiful finish. It looks like professional furniture. Really, like I said, easy to apply. Now, if you're looking for something that you don't have to sand between coats with, you would want a lacquer. Lacquer, because it has solvents in it, it will dissolve into the base coat that you put it on. So you can apply multiple coats without actually having to sand in between coats. Now, I think you can sand between coats, but the beauty of lacquer is you can build up multiple coats in a short amount of time without having to sand in between. This takes a little bit longer to apply, but the results are really, really nice, and this is going to be more durable than a lacquer. The lacquer brand that I recommend using is Deft. You can order on Amazon. This stuff right here, I've only been able to find it at Woodcraft, so you might check them out. I actually haven't had to look for it at Lowe's or Home Depot. But fantastic stuff, so definitely check that out. So let's get this applied, and then we'll go to our final step, which is going to be the flocking. Now we're down to the last step, and this is going to be a fun step. It's going to be a little bit time consuming just because there's a little few steps with it, but it's a lot of fun. So let's talk about first the flocking material. Now I got this kit off of Amazon, which comes with the color, it comes with the adhesive, it comes with the application tool, it comes with a little paintbrush, and you have everything you need to apply it. Now I know a number of people use the application tool. I'm not going to do that today, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. But let's go through this kit. So this is a brand called Suede Tex, and this is the Flock It adhesive. So today we're going to be using a black on our drawer, and I believe you can order this in multiple colors: red, green, possibly blue. But I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get this particular kit for the black. So black flocking adhesive. We have got our application tool, which is a tube like this. It's got some holes on the end, and the way you would use this is you would pour your flocking powder in here, or actually on this side, put it in here, and then you would use this, and these little holes would pump air through it, and you'd get the flocking fiber stuck to the adhesive. And last but not least, you got a great big bag of flocking fibers. This stuff is a little bit messy, and you also want to wear a dust mask with this just so you don't have to breathe all these fibers in. I don't believe they're toxic at all, but it's maybe irritating to some people's lungs. Now the process that I'm going to do today is a little bit different and might be a little bit easier for some people. It's not quite as messy, I don't think, and you may get away with not having to wear a mask. So let's talk about our drawer first. Prep work. So we just finished applying our sealer to the drawer, and this is going to be our final finish. So you want to kind of put your finish on prior to doing this so you don't get the, whatever sealer or lacquer or, polyurethane, whatever you got on your little fibers, because you don't want to mess that up. You want it to look nice. So I'm going to seal the inside so it doesn't soak through. It gives it a good base because, wood fiber acts as a sponge. And so if you're applying your adhesive onto a porous material, it's going to soak it in quite quick and won't give enough tacky type material surface for the fibers to stick to. So definitely seal it first. Next part of our prep work is to tape everything off that you don't want to get paint and fibers on. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this up real quick. And the brand of tape I recommend using is this frog tape. And I came to this Illusion frog tape because of a video on YouTube where a gentleman compared all the different types of tape and the ability to prevent bleed through with paints, and frog tape hands down came head and shoulders above the rest. Okay, so we got our drawer all completely taped up, got the edges everywhere that I don't want flocking adhesive stuck to. I've got it taped. Now, I need to open this jar up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a liberal coat of flocking adhesive onto the inside of the drawer. Wait a few seconds and then apply some more. You want it kind of to have that wet, tacky look when you apply your flocking. You don't want to let this dry because then our fibers don't stick as well. So depending on how good of a job you did sealing this, actually you may not need to put multiple coats on. The way we're going to do this is we're going to apply our adhesive like we've done now, and then we're going to take a Ziploc bag. We're going to pour our flocking material in the drawer while it's in the bag, and then kind of take it and shake it in the bag. Then we're going to leave our flocking material overnight to sit so that material is sitting there on it and it gets the best coverage possible. Now with this kind right here, it throws fibers kind of everywhere and it makes a little bit of cloud of fibers. That's why you're going to want to wear a dust mask with this stuff. This stuff you want to apply a lot. When you think you've applied enough, apply more. You can't add too much to this because when you're done, you're just going to knock off the excess and you get it saved, so you're not wasting material. This way, if you dump it in here, shake it around really good, all those fibers are sitting on top of your adhesive and you're going to get the maximum amount of coverage possible. And then also this way, you don't throw up that cloud of fibers everywhere. So let's show you one that is been sitting overnight that I just finished. So kind of take this here, kind of tap that out. And you can take this and blow this out a little bit more if you've got a little bit of fibers just kind of hanging in there that you didn't get knocked out. But this drawer is considered finished. So let's finish up these other drawers and then we'll come back and we'll show you the finished product. Well guys, we've come to the end of this video series on this bandsaw box and I really enjoyed it. And hopefully you did too on learning how to make this particular box. Now, as always, I will make sure to leave all of the things that I used on this and everything that I use. I try to put them in the description below with links to where you can get stuff. Now, before I finish, I want to talk about one little thing that I did not include in the video, is that is putting the little handles on all the drawers. Now, I chose to use a 1-inch plug cutter, just a really thin piece of walnut, and I cut out little circles. And then I just cut the circles in half and use that as our drawer pulls. Now you can use anything that you want, whether it be pre-made little brass knobs, little wood knobs. I mean, really, the sky is the limit on what you want to use to open your drawers with. If I left anything out, and I'm sure I probably did, be sure and leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and stay tuned for the next video.